Good afternoon. My name is Tim Stover. I'm a retired United Methodist minister affiliated with this congregation. And on behalf of Sam and the extended families of Clark and Sam, it is my privilege to offer you a warm, I wish drier, welcome to this time of remembering, of celebrating, of giving thanks for the Spirit-filled gifts that we have received in and through the life of Clark House that he has shared so generously and abundantly with us. As we gather, we bring our whole selves to this liminal space wherein our grief and our joy, our hopes and our fears, our pain and our healing are all joined, all honored as we comfort and uphold one another. Our act of celebrating Clark's life will be graced appropriately by gifts of music and by the stories and reflections that are shared, both within this service as well as continuing during reception following the service, to which you are all welcome. So in this spirit of celebration, I invite you to stand as you are able as we join in singing the Hymn of Promise, which is found on page 707 for most of you, and the hymnals in your pews. Please be seated. I share a reading from Scripture from Paul's first letter to the gathered community in Corinth, chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For now we know only in part, We prophesy only in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then we shall see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love remain, these three, and the greatest of these is love. This passage is probably one of the most well-known among all of New Testament scripture. You may have been thinking that it would be more appropriately read as part of a wedding, which it often is because weddings are a celebration of love. And indeed, the first half of the chapter is a magnificent poetic portrayal of a particular form of love. In the original Greek, it is agape love, which is a self-giving love, a love that is realized when you give of yourself for the sake of another or in service to another. It is in this way that this love is a gift that surpasses all other gifts. The significance of this is clear in that this chapter was sandwiched in between a couple of other chapters that were focused on a number of gifts or talents or skills that varied members of this very colorful Corinthian community were bringing to the table. In a sense, Paul offers this chapter as a corrective to what has become almost a competition in that community regarding whose particular gifts were most important. Paul makes a point that all these gifts are important to the building up of community, particularly so when they are offered up for that purpose, as opposed to being offered up out of a spirit of self-importance or self-aggrandizement. The second half of the passage takes what seems to be a different path as it focuses on the process of growing, of maturing as an individual. It has a clear spiritual ring to it in that process of maturing is one of coming to know, to see, to understand our own selves ever more clearly. That we come to know ourselves maybe even as fully as God knows us, as God sees us. The passage seems to suggest that the most reliable way for us to so find ourselves is to more fully muster the courage, the strength, the trust to give ourselves away in loving service to others. My sense is that such an understanding is consonant, is congruent with how Clark shared his life, sharing his self-giving love in the way upbuilding communities, several communities, I think, as we bear witness today with our gathering community. And so I invite you in the spirit of that self-giving community upbuilding love to join in the spirit of this celebration and this act of remembering. I want to welcome the Confluence Chorus, who are going to grace us with some music as I get out of your way. We begin a time in which we will share memories, reflections from Clark's life, our lives with him. We're going to begin with some recorded words from his family who are not able to be here but wanted to share them with us. So you'll just hear it over the sound system.
Clark House, my little brother. On the evening of December 21st, we received a call from Sam. Clark was gone. My wife and I were devastated. Thoughts were swirling with disbelief my only brother was gone. Clark and Sam arrived at our house in Alabama on December 15th. The next day, we drove to Tennessee to see my grandson's basketball game, and in between games, we had lunch together. Clark told his story about the N on the University of Nebraska Stadium stood for knowledge. My 6-year-old grandson seriously said, "Knowledge begins with a K." Clark was really delighted with this statement. Indeed, this visit was a godsend. Early on the morning of the 17th, Clark and Sam continued their journey west, and I received a text from Clark that they had arrived in Hot Springs, Arkansas. That was the last text that I ever received from my brother. I'm grateful Clark and Sam stopped by. We had such a great visit. I never expected this passing. Everyone that knew him, family and friends, will keep their memories of him alive, retelling of stories and his place in all our hearts. My wife always described Clark as the most gentle, kind, funny man she has ever known. We love you, Clark.
Hello, my name is Eric House, and Clark was my uncle. I just wanted to say to Sam that I'm deeply sorry for your loss, and I believe we are all still in shock that he is now no longer with us. And I just wanted to say to Sam and to all of his friends and family, to God bless you, and God bless my Uncle Clark.
Hi, my name is Becca. I'm Clark's niece. I actually was very lucky because I got to see Clark about a week before he passed away. He and Sam came to see both of my boys play basketball, and we got to spend the day together, and it was really nice to catch up and see him and Sam, and we just had a really nice day. I obviously was very surprised to find out a week later he passed away. He was such a kind person, and he was a wonderful uncle to me. We're gonna miss him a lot. And Sam's my uncle too, and I love you, Sam, and I'm praying and thinking of you often, and I'm gonna miss you, Uncle Clark. Love you.
Is that okay? So Sam is going to come forward, and as he's coming forward, you'll see that there's an opportunity for others to come forward as you wish to share. If you do so, please come up here to this microphone and move it so that it lines up correctly so that everybody can hear you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for doing such a wonderful job of filling up this beautiful space today. This is the church where the Eugene Gay Men's Chorus has our Corvallis concerts a couple times a year when we do one of our major concert performances, and I've always loved this particular sanctuary in Corvallis, so I was so pleased that it was available today. I also really wanted to pick a date for this celebration where both of our chorus families would be available to participate. And this was the earliest date that both groups were available, and I decided to pounce on it with the church being available too. So nice harmonic convergence of things coming together in what I think is a really ideal way. I got to see many of you as you came in. I didn't get to see everybody. My goal today is to try to make some kind of connection with each and every one of you. I know this is a situation that creates wonderful potential for quality one-on-one interactions with each and every one of you. So that's my goal. I don't know if that will happen or not. I want to take just a moment to try to acknowledge what I understand are some of the groups of people who have found your way here today. Clark and I, as many of you probably know, we tended to cast a fairly big net with our organizational involvements and our community commitments and ties and so forth. So I definitely want to start by acknowledging family who are filling up the first couple rows here, most of whom are, or many of whom are from Oregon, but I also have my sister Melissa and her partner Trent who flew in from Colorado a couple days ago, and my brother Kevin in the front row who flew in from New York. Thank you, family, for being here. It means so much. My hunch is there are a good number of Mid-Willamette Valley realtors in the audience today. And please maybe just raise your hands if you were one of Clark's colleagues in the real estate field. Maybe even some of Clark's real estate clients are in the audience. Oh, look at all those hands go up. He made a lot of his clients very happy people over the years, is my understanding. Again, both of our choruses, the Eugene Gay Men's Chorus over here, Confluence, the Willamette Valley LGBT Chorus. And by the way, there may be some former chorus members in the audience today. At the end of the service today, you may have noticed both choruses will be getting up and doing a combined version of In This Very Room. And I certainly want to extend a warm welcome to any former Confluence singers who would like to come up on the stage and join us for that song. That would be a beautiful touch. I even saw some friends from the Portland Gay Men's Chorus show up today, which really means a lot to me. We've done our networking over the years with Oregon's gay and lesbian choral groups, so thank you for being here. I know there's a good number of Benton County Democrats in the house as well, so raise your hands perhaps. Yeah, I told you. In fact, I really want to quickly acknowledge and thank, I had a couple of different big groups of people, Clark's real estate friends and his real estate colleagues, as well as some of the Benton County Democrats reached out to me and said they really wanted to do something to help with providing the food and the beverages for the reception that's going to be following the service today. So please make a point of trying to find your way out into the library lounge after the service is over. Feel free to imbibe in the food and beverages that have been provided. Also, I will mention along the back wall, the fireplace wall, we've laid out a photo display. And on both ends of that long table, there are guest books that I would invite everybody to please sign at least your name. And if you want to make another comment or two in the books, they're probably big enough that they can handle that. I think there are also some people here today from the Albany Civic Theater community. I saw some of my theater friends in the audience. Please raise your hands as well, a few of you anyway. Thank you for being here. I also have seen a few of my former colleagues from Oregon State University when I was working on campus, which I can still hardly believe was over 20 years ago now. But some of my former OSU friends, maybe please raise your hands. Thank you so much for being here. I also have some friends that I've known for about 50 years at this stage. A few friends from high school in California, San Jose, California, have made their way to Corvallis today. Even a couple of my friends from my undergraduate days at UC Davis. So maybe you folks could raise your hands as well. Thank you so much. It just means the world to me that you all traveled the distances that you did to be here. Thank you. Part of the challenge here is the English language just doesn't quite capture the depth of my gratitude and my appreciation and my thanks. It's been incredible, the outpouring of love, of concern, of sympathy, of support. I don't think I've ever received so many offers to help with anything in my entire life. And I thought our wedding was one great big love fest. I have to tell you that. This puts the wedding almost, it buries it almost. It's been a force to behold. It has been so profound and so moving. At some points it's felt almost like a tidal wave, a tsunami, but we often have negative connotations when we use the word tsunami. I want to convey it's been really clear in my heart and in my gut that this remarkable outpouring has helped to keep me afloat, and it has really helped to sustain me these last couple months. So I wish there was a better way to try to convey in words my profound gratitude and appreciation and thanks to all of you loving, wonderful, kind-hearted people. We were so blessed to have the network of friends and colleagues and family. We were very, very blessed, very, very, very lucky. Okay, I actually do have written remarks, believe it or not. This is a very large, impressive, and a moving gathering of friends, family, loved ones, colleagues being drawn together to mark and commemorate a very sudden, a very shocking, and a very sad passing. Sad, I think, for all of us. Everyone in this room, I think, has been deeply shocked and surprised and saddened by the news of Clark's passing. And at the same time, my big hope for today was that we can focus on coming together and gathering and remembering, appreciating, and celebrating truly one of the dearest, kindest, sweetest men that many of us have ever met. You know, he was really a rare bird. There have been plenty of heartfelt tears shed in recent weeks, and I wish I could have counted the number of great big bear hugs I have received and given myself, and that will likely continue for weeks and months to come. But I just, again, want to try to focus a little bit more on the sense of celebration and the sense of appreciating and remembering, hopefully with big smiles on our faces, just some of the really wonderful qualities and aspects and personality traits of Clark. I also do want to acknowledge and convey a little bit of regret and some disappointment and extend a small apology to the friends and family members from outside of the Willamette Valley region who had hoped to view today's service online, as was our original plan and intention. Some key people in Clark's family and from his younger years were not able to travel to Oregon, and we've already heard some of their video recordings. Unfortunately, it became clear just a couple of days ago that we simply are not able to incorporate those videos into the live service today. And one of the reasons, as you might imagine, this church made a decision quite a while ago, because this sanctuary is just so beautiful with all the glass, stained glass, and all the carved wood and the pipe organs and so forth. They made a decision not to hang or generate a great big projection screen up in front of the church, which in this space, I could completely understand why that decision was made. So instead, what we're going to do, we are generating a video recording of today's service, and we are going to be able to edit in the various video recordings that have been submitted. There's also going to be a bonus video in the final production. Those of you from Confluence Chorus may remember the synchronized swim routine that the chorus on my right, your left up here. Twice a year we have weekend retreats to learn our music for our upcoming concert. And most retreats on Saturday night, we have what we call a no talent show. And when you call it a no talent show, it makes it a lot easier for people to get up and do things. So this goes back almost 10 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe more than that. But we got a video recording of five of the bass singers in the bass section, along with our artistic director, Raymond, and Raymond's brother, Bobby, was part of it as well. We called it a 40-year reunion of the East German and Jamaican women's synchronized swim teams. So I just want to give you a little sneak preview. That will be in the YouTube video recording that we hope will be released within the next week or so. Clark is the one who is lost the most, okay? The poor man just did not have much of an internal compass about him. And we intentionally only had 2 rehearsals for this whole elaborate choreographed production we did in women's swimsuits and bathing caps, no less. So anyway, I'm probably saying too much about that. I'm spoiler alert here, so. Another video I don't think we're going to be able to hear anything from today, but that I really want to invite you all to try to take the time to listen to when that final video is put up on the internet. It'll be up on a YouTube channel that we'll be sure to advertise. One of Clark's dearest and longest lasting friends from high school, an African-American man named Gregory McDonald, who has lived in Minneapolis now for a number of years. Greg and Clark met in April of 1970. They were both attending the same high school in Olympia Fields, Illinois, just one of the suburbs south of Chicago. And Clark had taken it upon himself to try to form a brand new human relations group at his high school, with the primary purpose of trying to ease racial tensions in the suburbs of Chicago. Greg will talk about how he was born and spent much of his childhood growing up in one of the projects, housing development sections in Chicago. And his family was able to move out into the south suburbs of Chicago right around the time he started high school. And Greg talks about what a painful and difficult transition that was for him. But then he met Clark, and he's thinking, what's this white boy doing about trying to improve race relations? You know, and he was very skeptical. But they formed a very unlikely friendship that has lasted ever since. And Greg has some very, very, very poignant words to share about his memories of those efforts during high school. And he also talks about how Clark played a huge role in his own life, in Greg's own life, in his own development when Clark came out to him as being a gay man. Greg's initial response, he did not take it very well. He's not exactly proud of what he first said to Clark. But he also speaks to how Clark and his friendship with Clark launched him on his own personal journey to come to terms with his own homophobia, and that it really played a big role. And Clark and their friendship really played a big role in opening up Greg's mind and Greg's heart and his levels of acceptance and understanding of human differences. So I hope you'll all take some time to catch that when that comes out.
Greetings. My name is Gregory McDonald, and I want to thank Sam for inviting me and allowing me to speak on behalf of my dear friend Clark, who I merged into adulthood without the teenager at the time. Went to high school together briefly because he was a couple of grades ahead of me. But I moved from Chicago, and I transferred to the south suburbs to the high school. We both attended Rich Central and Olympia Fields. It was quite different for me growing up in the projects, and then we moved to the suburbs. It was a big transition for the whole family. Altogether, there was some major reluctance on my part because I didn't want to leave the projects. I kind of liked where I was at. You know, it's just finding myself in a lot of ways. And this basically kind of knocked me off my axis, moving out to the suburbs, the boonies. And what I expected kind of happened as well too. There was some very extreme negative attitudes towards me solely because I'm a black man. And I had to basically kind of fight my way through the halls from time to time. And it got real bad with most of the students, and there was just this tension. Clark took it upon himself to start a human relations club just to kind of open up dialogue and everything like that, and to try to communicate, see if we could establish some kind of commonality. And I remember the first time I met him was that meeting. I was the first one through the door because it just started, and the club was at its embryonic phase, and he didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what to expect. But right away we started communicating one-on-one, and gradually we became, strong comrades. I wouldn't say that we were friends, but we were moving in the same direction for peace and justice and whatnot. And Clark was basically was at the rudder, and he let a lot of us take the lead on certain issues. And we did really well. We got Club of the Year. And so when that was over, summer came, and I was going about my business. I would run into Clark. It was so funny because, I would go to the movies, and I would go to the plaza, and I would run into him, and I'd say, hey, how you doing? Small talk, and then it would turn into like, can I come to the movies with you? And I said, sure. And so we became compadres because we started going to the movies together. And since he had a car, he wanted to go into the city to see certain things, and I'd be kind of like his one-man chaperone or his bodyguard, whatever you want to call it, because sometimes we would have to go to the south side of Chicago. Clark wasn't scared, he was just careful, and I could appreciate that. And so he got to meet a lot of people, and a lot of people got to appreciate him as well. The whole time we were doing all this, I didn't know that he was hiding in the closet, and he didn't tell nobody, but all of a sudden he disappeared, and then he came back about a few months later, and he had a beard, and his hair got longer, and he tracked me down, and we talked, and we met at the Unitarian Church. We were talking in the rec room, and he revealed to me that he was, as he said, I'm a homosexual. Well, being a young, ignorant mind, I didn't accept it. I said some vile things, and that kind of put a stop to our friendship, because I kind of thought being a homosexual was contagious. Ignorance, how ignorance is. Everybody's ignorant, being stupid is a different story. But so that we separated, and I went about my life and started having encounters with life itself. And I gradually started realizing that I was going to run into gay people, and then the people that I really admired, such as Langston Hughes and James Baldwin, and just a lot of people that I looked up to were gay. And I finally came to the conclusion that, they're people too. And I had to change my attitude. And I couldn't really complete that until I tracked down Clark. So I went looking for him. This was like 20 years later, and I found him, and he was in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was living in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Don't ask me why. I was just there, and we talked on the phone, and I didn't waste no time in asking him to forgive me, and he kind of said, I forgave you a long time ago. long time ago. And I developed a better appreciation of Clark. I've learned a lot from that point on. And we stayed in touch. Early, I wanted to say that our birthday was on the same day. So we used to joke about being yin and yang, you know. And solely because our birthday was on the same day. And we would call each other and got to meet Sam. They came up to Minneapolis and saw how happy he was, really happy. And I just appreciated that. And I don't really have much to say it, except that he's just somebody I will never forget as long as I live. And I am very confident that I'll see him again in paradise. And it'll be all good. It'll be all good like it always should have been. So again, I'd like to thank this opportunity in expressing myself about my love for my brother, Clark House. And I want to thank life itself for bringing us towards each other's direction. So I don't have a heavy heart. I'm joyful for the fact that I've experienced, somebody wonderful, totally wonderful. And the beat goes on.
Excuse me. I feel like because Clark's passing was so sudden and so shocking, I know I have taken time in the last couple of months to try to tell the story to a number of people, particularly in phone calls I've made. It quickly dawned on me that just about every single one of those phone calls was taking a good 20, 25, 30 minutes, and it got to a point where I could only do about 6 or 8 of those a day, and then it was still adding up to several hours of being on the phone. And I reached a point where I just needed to kind of take a break from doing that. But I know there are a lot of people today who I haven't had a chance to speak with yet, and I would like to take at least a few minutes to try to let you all know what actually happened. It's probably not going to be an easy part of the comments today, but you've already seen me deal with comments that aren't all that easy today. Many of you know Clark and I had dreamt for the last few years of letting ourselves take a great big, we thought of it as a 4-month cross-country road trip, just do a great big clockwise loop around North America. We were going to do it back in 2021, was the first time we thought we'd really make a good faith effort to do it, but the COVID pandemic was still raging at that point, so it didn't make any sense to do it then. 2022, months after Putin had invaded Ukraine, the price of gas was almost $6 a gallon. And our little old motorhome only gets about 12 to 14 miles to the gallon. And I did the math, and it was going to come out to about 50 cents a mile. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So 2023 was the year that it's felt like everything came together for us. And we decided to hit the road on September 1st with a goal of being home by the end of the year. And we made it, we literally, unfortunately, the day he died, it was the final day of week 16 of what we had always thought was probably going to be a 17 or 18-week trip. So we had been on the road for exactly 3 months and 3 weeks, and in that time, we had been able to visit 25 national parks or national park historic sites in both the United States and Canada. We have been able to connect with either stay with for a night or two, or at the very least get together for a meal or a cup of coffee or a happy hour drink or something. I kind of did the math on that as I went back and reread my journal. We connected with just shy of 100 friends and relatives during those 3 months and 3 weeks. When we made it to our destination on that day, it's Los Lunas, New Mexico, which is about 25 minutes south of Albuquerque, we were just shy of having reached the 14,000-mile mark with the driving that we had done with our motorhome. And it didn't break down once. Our old 1989 Toyota Dolphin Micro Mini motorhome that was our little condo on wheels, that it was all of maybe 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. You know, those were our living quarters, you know. So, and we'd gotten to a point, maybe I'd say about a week before this happened, you know, we'd gotten to a point where we were really acknowledging there was a certain sense of travel fatigue that was setting in. We were both saying, you know, I think it's going to be nice to be back home again. We both were saying how much we were looking forward to rejoining our 2 choruses and get back to singing once again. And you know, at that point, in a long trip like that, you know, our temper fuses were getting a little bit shorter, if you can imagine that. And every now and then we'd kind of snip and snap at each other and so forth. And I will tell you this. This is something I didn't necessarily say to everybody that I spoke with, but on the day that Clark passed, so suddenly that morning, well, I should say the day before, we had driven 450 miles from Whitesboro, Texas to Clovis, New Mexico. And it was the first time I'd ever driven across the whole state of Texas. And I'm not sure I'm really looking forward to doing that again, but we did make it into just inside of the New Mexico border by about 10 miles or so. And even as we arrived at the campground we were going to stay at that night, Clark was kind of in a pissy mood, and he said, "We are not having any more 450-mile days of driving." And I said, "I'm with you, honey. I'm sick of it too." And I said, part of why we wanted to do this was so that today we'd only have to drive 250 miles, and we'd get to our destination much more quickly and comfortably. So the next morning, we woke up about 8 o'clock in the morning, and like pretty much every morning, one of us would ask the question, well, how did you sleep? So I asked Clark, how did you sleep? And he said, Sam, he said, last couple nights, he said, I have not slept well at all. He said, I keep having this recurring dream that's just terrifying. And in my dream, I can't breathe. And it's scary enough that it wakes me up. And when I wake up, I'm able to breathe. So he's able to fall back asleep, but it said it happened 2 nights in a row. It didn't rouse him enough in the middle of the night to wake me up too. I was not aware that he was having bad dreams or anything. And then I thought, that does sound really scary, you know. And a day or two later, and after the math of his passing, I got to thinking, gee, maybe we should have gone to urgent care, but who goes to a doctor because you had a bad dream, you know? So I don't know. I've been doing a fair amount of second guessing along those lines. But anyway, we hit the road about 9 o'clock that morning after breakfast, knowing we only had about 250 miles to drive. Throughout our entire trip, we shared the driving. Clark had his dislikes. Clark did not like driving at night. Clark did not like driving on interstates, and Clark did not like driving in big cities. So I would usually take over the driving in those conditions. But on that particular day, we were in the rural, wide-open deserts of eastern New Mexico. It was one of those roads where you can go 40 or 50 miles without any signs of civilization and so forth. But we had traded off driving a couple times. And he drove first. He told me he was getting tired. And I said, fine, pull over, we can switch. And as we were walking around the front of the motorhome, I just said to him, I said, why don't you just lay down on the couch right behind the driver's seat? Why don't you try to catch a nap since you didn't sleep very well that night? He said, that's a good idea. And so sure enough, he crawled in on the sofa bed right behind the driver's seat, and he slept for about an hour and woke up and said he was feeling much better and he was ready to drive again. And I said, fine. And so we pulled over, we walked around the front of the truck again, and I said, I'm going to take your inspiration and I'm going to take a nap this time. And I pulled out the map. Again, Clark had no sense of direction. I pulled out the map and I said, this is where we're going to. There was only 2 possible turns he could have chosen. And I said, this is where we're going to, and then that'll take us right up to I-25, and we'll be there. He said, okay. So I fall asleep, and I'm feeling the road kind of bumping and rocking and everything. I probably only slept for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. And part of what woke me up is all of a sudden we were on this really smooth pavement. I'm going, this doesn't feel like the right road. And sure enough, I roll over and I look out the front window, and we're on this divided 4-lane highway, and I'm going, where are we? And we passed a highway sign. I said, oh, Clark, you took the wrong turn. And I said, if anybody can get us lost on this trip, it's going to be you. I told you, the temper fuses had gotten short at that point in the trip. So he took us out of our way, probably maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And what he did is he started driving north to the east of Albuquerque up to Interstate 40. And as we got closer and closer to 40, he said, so Sam, he said, are you going to make me drive on Interstate 40 because of the driving mistake I made? And I said, no, honey, I'm happy to get us where we need to go, because we had to take I-40 to I-25. I said, no, I won't subject you to that. So in the aftermath, given what my earlier remark was, I felt better that I did not make him drive on the interstates after. But anyway, we arrived at our friend's home, Paul and Roxanne, who live in Los Lunas, New Mexico. We probably got there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were happy to see them. They were happy to see us. Paul and I actually go all the way back to 2nd grade in San Jose, California. And we've actually only kind of reconnected face-to-face in person in just the last couple years, after going close to 50 years without seeing each other at all. We did reconnect on Facebook a number of years ago. So anyway, we had visited them a year ago, November, when we went down to the Southwest to help my birth mother celebrate her 90th birthday. And then also my high school graduating class, we had our 50-year class reunion this last May, and Paul and Roxanne were able to travel to San Jose for that, so we saw them there as well. Anyway, they were happy to have us come spend a couple nights with them, and we had gotten there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we hadn't even started happy hour yet. We were all sipping on glasses of water, and the 4 of us were just sitting in their living room, and they had just sold a home a couple months earlier, and they had what was often referred to by realtors, I understand, as the buyer from hell. But this woman, it was a woman who bought their home and had gone through the whole house inspection process and found some things that needed to be dealt with or repaired or whatever, and Paul and Roxanne took care of those things. And after she took possession of the home and had moved in, she was reaching out to them on almost a weekly basis with new things she was finding that she wasn't happy with and that she expected them to do something about. So they were trying to pick Clark's brain. How can we deal with this woman? And Clark loved to talk real estate shop talk, and he was happy to answer their questions and happy to offer his opinions. And literally, we were sitting next to each other in adjoining reclining chairs. Mid-sentence, he just stopped talking. His eyelids closed, and his head just rolled off to the side. Didn't make a sound. And so the three of us jumped up and we rushed over to try to see what was wrong and see what we could do to assist him and try to revive him, and called 911. We got him down in more of a reclining position in the recliner chair. We were coached over the phone on how to give CPR. I'd been through CPR training. In fact, I was involved in giving CPR to my own mother back in the year 2000, my sister and I right here. And that situation had a very different outcome than what happened in this situation. We thought we were feeling a pulse in his wrist as we were giving him CPR. There were about, 8 or 9 points where, he wasn't responding at all. His eyes were kind of rolling in his head. About every 30 seconds or so, he would take a great big gasp as though he was trying to breathe, but not able to breathe normally. And that may have been what he was dreaming about. I'm not sure. I guess I'll never know. The ambulances got there in what seemed like no more than 4 or 5, maybe 6 minutes. 2 ambulances showed up at the house. 6 EMTs all came rushing into the living room. They all got him down on the floor, and they went right to work on him. And I have no faults, I have no criticisms, I have no complaints. Each one of them had their own little piece of the process, and they just literally did everything they could. I will say everything felt like it went into slow motion once they kind of started working on him. I remember in the situation with my mother, again, the ambulance got there in just a few minutes. They got out their defibrillator paddles, zapped her once, got her heart going again, got her up on the gurney, got her out to the ambulance, took her to the hospital. Our mother was unconscious for about the next 8 to 10 hours. But she came out of it, and our mother lived another 10 years after that. In this situation with Clark, this whole team of people went to work on him, and nobody was saying anything. They did get out their defibrillator paddles. They had him hooked up to a heart monitor. They intubated him. They got an IV in his arm. They got the mechanical chest compressor going on him. They had their EpiPens. Every few minutes, one of them would say, "Pulse check," and then nobody would say anything. And after about the 3rd time of that, "Pulse check," and nobody said anything, I just said, "Are you finding a pulse?" I was kind of looking at the heart monitor, and I thought I saw the pulse line going, and nobody would answer me even. Nobody answered my question. And then at about the 20-minute mark, I must confess, I had a Sam Sappington high drama moment. And I just stood up and I said, "What are you people doing? Aren't you going to get him off the floor and on the gurney and out to the ambulance and take him to the hospital?" Roxanne told me later, "Sam, you took the words right out of my mouth." And one of the EMTs stood up and just looked at me and said, "Sir, we are doing everything we can to try to revive him and try to get his heart going again. But ever since we got here and got him on the floor, we have not been able to find a pulse on him," which was news to me. I was not aware of that. And she said, "We will continue doing everything we can to try to get his heart beating again and get a pulse back." And then she said something that I had never heard or understood before. But she says, "If we can't get his pulse back, if we can't get his heart beating again, we can't transport him to the hospital." And I now think I understand that is kind of standard EMT protocol that I was just not aware of before. So I just kind of piped back down and said, "Okay." And she said, "We are going to continue doing everything we can." And they were really incredible. They did the defibrillator paddles on him 5 times. They gave him 4 EpiPen shots. They worked on him for more than 40 minutes before they finally just looked at me and said, "We're sorry, there's nothing else we can do, and he's not coming back." So that's how it happened. That's how it happened. It was very sudden. It was very unexpected. I mean, it's not like Clark did not have any health issues. He did. Clark has been on high blood pressure medication since his 30s. Clark has also been diagnosed in recent years with type 2 diabetes. He's never needed the insulin injections or anything. He got a real wake-up call from his doctors about a year and a half or two ago, saying you need to get serious about losing weight, and he took it to heart, and he lost 50 to 60 pounds over the span of 6 months or so. By the way, his secret was smaller portions, if anybody's wondering. He got asked that question a lot by the various people. How did you do this? Smaller portions, okay. Little tip there. I do think I think it's important to share just a little bit too about his family history. Because we had visited Clark's brother Mike and wife and his niece and his 2 grandsons just the weekend before, Mike was the first person I called after it was clear that we had lost Clark. And I told Mike what happened, and the first thing out of Mike's mouth was, "Sam, that is exactly how our mother died." And his mother actually, or their mother, passed away before I ever met Clark. She passed away at the age of 59. She was a homemaker. This was in the late 80s. I think it might have been 88 or 89. She was home alone one day. Clark and his brother had been out of the house for quite a while. Their dad was at work. She was just sitting at the kitchen table working on a crossword puzzle. Then when their dad got home that evening, she was slumped over the kitchen table with the pencil still in her hand. So she clearly did not get any opportunity to stand up and go try to call 911 or anything. It was just instantaneous for her. Clark's father outlived his mother by 20 years. His father lived to the age of 79, about a month shy of his 88th birthday. And his father died of complications with diabetes. And Clark turned 70 just last July. Clark's lifespan landed just right smack dab in the middle of both of his parents' lifespans. So that kind of leaves me thinking there has to be some genetic, hereditary, family factors at play in what happened here. I want to share I'm going to shift gears and kind of wrap this up in the next few minutes by sharing just a little bit of the history of our relationship and I realize trying to encapsulate a 30-year relationship is not easy. I was always, you know what? I'm sorry. I want to backtrack just a moment. I skipped over one paragraph in my notes here. I want to extend an incredibly heartfelt thanks to Paul and Roxanne in Los Lunas, New Mexico. They hadn't even been in this new home of theirs for 2 months, and this horrible tragedy happened with somebody dying right on their living room floor just days before Christmas. By the way, this did happen on Winter Solstice Day, December 21st, the darkest day of the year. And they were so accommodating, they were so supportive, they were so helpful and accepting and welcoming of our dog being in their home and transporting me to the funeral home for meetings that had to take place there, transporting me to the airport. Clark and I had intended to make it to Phoenix, Arizona for Christmas, to spend Christmas with my birth mother, Linda. And because this all happened just before Christmas weekend, there was no way I was going to be able to take possession of Clark's remains until after Christmas. So I went ahead and purchased airline tickets to take a quick 48-hour flight to Phoenix from Albuquerque. And in Phoenix, I really owe a tremendous thank you and debt of gratitude to another old college roommate from Davis, Rob Risley, who picked me up at the airport, brought me to my mother's home, actually joined us for Christmas Day dinner, along with a couple other relatives, and he brought me back to the airport as well. My birth mother, Linda, who really had hoped to be here, but at 91, she was a little skittish about flying on her own from Phoenix for this weekend. But just being able to spend a couple days with her was very, very helpful and very, very healing and very, very loving and very, very special. I also need to extend a very, very profound and heartfelt sense of thanks and gratitude to my cousin Drew Johnson, who is sitting right in the front row here. I hope this doesn't sound boastful. I was blown away by the fact that I had 7 people reach out to me and tell me, I'm willing to come to Albuquerque to ride home with you so you don't have to do that final 1,500-mile drive by yourself. My sister and her partner Trent also offered, and several offers, and I'm thinking, how am I going to make this decision, you know? And then all of a sudden I get a text message from my cousin Drew here saying, Sam, I just bought my airline ticket. I'm flying to Albuquerque on the day after Christmas. I'm driving home with you. You are not doing this trip by yourself. And I said, that decision just got made. So, and Drew and I spent the next 4 days, starting on the 27th. And Drew, I can't find the words to tell you how much that meant to me. And unfortunately, Drew just lost his own husband this last June, a relationship of 38 years. And one of the things he said to me is, I know what you're going through, Sam. And he said, I really want to be there for you. And you really were. And I'm so grateful, Drew. Thank you so very much. Okay. Clark and I had a real yin and yang quality to our relationship. And over time, I think it became clear to each of us that some of our fundamental personality differences actually blended and interacted in ways that really helped to bind us together and to kind of make us an interesting team, shall we say. My sense of adventure, my more extroverted tendencies perhaps helped to bring him out of his somewhat more shy and introverted approach to life. And on the other hand, his Midwestern sensibilities, being a corn-fed boy from Iowa, Davenport, Iowa, brought some new levels of calmness and reason into our household, you know, which I greatly appreciated. I have to tell you very, very, very quickly, when I proposed to Clark, it was on the weekend that we were celebrating 24 years of living together. We took a trip over to the Oregon coast, and I knew I was going to ask him if he wanted to marry me. After 24 years, I thought we had probably given it enough of a test, you know, so. And so we took a walk on the beach, and we were starting to walk back to the car. This is at Ona Beach State Park, and I said, why don't we grab a seat at one of these little tables here? And I knew if I got down on one knee, I'd probably never get back up again. So I thought, let's just do this sitting at a picnic table, you know. And there was these rows of these tables with these big shrubs in between, and we just happened to be sitting next to some group who was smoking pot, and so all the marijuana smoke was wafting through the shrubs. Clark said he wasn't in his right mind when the question got popped to him, you know. So, and I kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit. I go, you know, this is marking 24 years together. You know, what do you think about the idea of maybe taking this relationship to the next level? And he kind of looks at me and he says, what do you mean? And I said, well, what do you think about us getting legally married? You know, next year's going to be 25 years. And I kid you not, the first thing out of his mouth was, probably would make more sense to wait until I become Medicare eligible next summer. Such a romantic. And so I kind of go, huh? And I said, well, he goes, you know, because I'll lose my health insurance if I get married before I turn 65. And I said, okay, well, we can wait. And I said, why don't we pick a weekend next summer, sometime after your 65th birthday, before Labor Day? And we did. We picked the last weekend of July the next summer. But see what I mean about that Midwestern sensibility? So, and I know others in the crowd are from the Midwest, too. You probably know what I'm talking about. Clark had never owned a passport before we got together. And it really marked a milestone for him and for both of us when we took our first international trip together in 1994. We took a trip to Costa Rica together, and he got bit seriously by the travel bug. And he became a great big fan of going to explore various parts of this great big beautiful world we all live in, and we were able to take quite a few very, very memorable trips together. When Clark was growing up in Iowa and then in Illinois, his family actually had taken several family vacations to the Rocky Mountain region of the country. And he'd had a dream since his early teens that someday he wanted to live in Colorado. Someday he wanted to live in the Rocky Mountains. He and I, without knowing it, we had both pursued the same PhD degrees in counseling psychology. He was a few years ahead of me. He was at the University of Nebraska. I was at the University of Maryland. When you do a PhD in counseling or clinical psychology, you have to complete a 12-month full-time internship. And he got selected to do his pre-doctoral internship at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour north of Denver. He started there in August of '86 and was done by August of '87. And his dream was to really try to find a way to stay in Colorado after his internship was done. And lo and behold, he was able to get a job with the Larimer County Mental Health Department, based right there in Fort Collins. And that his kind of dream came true. When I completed my PhD, or was completing my PhD a few years later, I had done my internship at Ohio State University, and then I pursued a nationwide job search for my first professional position, and I got hired at Colorado State University. And I was hired as one of their full-time staff members for a more permanent position. And I'd only been there for maybe a couple months or so, and I had a clinical supervisor at the time, and she was just curious how I was adjusting to the move to Colorado. And she asked me at one point in one of our weekly supervision sessions, she says, "Have you ever met a man in town named Clark House?" And I said, "No, that name doesn't ring a bell." And she says, "I really think you guys would like each other. I really think you guys would connect." I'm going, okay, well, I'll keep an eye out for that name. And it wasn't until a year later, it wasn't until like the following October, the university, Colorado State University, decided to bring a good size portion or segment of the National AIDS Quilt to campus for a long weekend display and a series of lectures and presentations about the AIDS epidemic at that point in time. And I had been approached by a lesbian therapist in private practice in town to see if we could develop some kind of a workshop on LGBT spirituality issues. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And it got scheduled to happen on campus the night before the quilt display opened. We had about 40 people show up for our workshop, and that was back in the days when you'd have everybody sit on the floor in a great big circle without it killing your back too badly, you know. And the first thing we had everybody do to start this workshop was, well, why don't you just introduce yourself to the person sitting next to you, say a little bit about what's bringing you here tonight, maybe share a little bit about how you've been touched or how your life has been affected by the AIDS epidemic. So I'm thinking, well, I should do this myself. And so I turned to the person sitting right next to me in this big circle on the floor. And I said, I'm Sam Sappington. And he said, hi, I'm Clark House. Ding, 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 ding. I think I recognize that name from a whole year ago, you know. And I said, oh, did you do your internship at the CSU Counseling Center? Yeah, a few years ago. And I said, I was told about you a while ago. And he knew Susan McQuitty and everything. Well, nothing really happened that evening. That was like on a Wednesday night. That weekend, on Saturday, I decided to come back to campus to actually walk the display of the quilt. And lo and behold, Clark was there doing the exact same thing. So we ran into each other once again just a few days later, and we kind of just struck up a conversation at the quilt display and decided to step outside on this balcony that looked up towards the mountains. And I very spontaneously said, can I take you out to dinner? And he said, well, sure. And so we dated for about a month and a half or two. That was in the fall of '91. And we actually wound up taking a little break. I had the opportunity to meet my birth mother for the first time in my life. I meet my biological brother for the first time in my life as an adoptee. And Clark, as a psychologist, said, you're kind of a basket case right now. Maybe this isn't the best time for us to be starting a new relationship. I go, I know exactly what you mean. Why don't we? And we agreed to let's keep our friendship going. We spent another 15 months or so together, just going hiking, taking camping trips with other friends, and we did a nice job of building our friendship. And it was January of '93, I was able to actually rent a big cabin that was owned by Susan McQuitty, my supervisor, who told me I should meet Clark. And he said they had a big cabin that could hold 9 or 10 people, and I tried to rent it one weekend a winter, and I invited Clark and 4 other friends up to that cabin that weekend in Breckenridge. And the cabin was under some renovations, and only the front rooms were heated and the back rooms were not heated. So when I told the guys, I said, if it gets too cold back there, feel free to come sleep up in the front of the house. And so after the first night we're all go to bed, I hear this little pitter-pat, pitter-pat, pitter-pat coming down the hall, and there's a little knock on my door, and it's Clark saying, that room is really cold back there. Do you mind? You said it was okay to come sleep up front here. And anyway, that weekend launched round 2 of our relationship, which has been going for 30 years. And it happened at the home of Susan McQuitty, who told me in '91, have you ever met Clark House? I think you guys would really like each other. So anyway. Clark had lived in a few different places in Colorado before we actually met, but he actually bought his first home, which is an old 1940s mountain cabin that sits right across the highway from the Big Thompson River, about 10, 15 minutes outside of Estes Park, Colorado. And he had lived there for 3 years before we kind of started getting much more serious about each other. He'd also been promoted to run the branch office of the Estes Park branch office of Larimer County Health Department. And it was this little tiny 1,100 square foot cabin that had knotty pine paneling in every room in the house, and it had a screened in front porch. And when we moved in with each other, or when I moved into his house about 9 months after that weekend at Breckenridge, we kind of developed this annual tradition. Pretty much for about 6 months out of the year, between April and October, we would just sleep out on that screened-in front porch and listen to the Big Thompson River flowing right across the highway. It's one of the big rivers that flows out of Rocky Mountain National Park off to the eastern plains. And I knew Clark had always wanted to live in Colorado. In 1998, I got word that my mother in California had been diagnosed with lymphoma and was needing to undergo about 6 months of chemotherapy treatment. And all of a sudden, I was feeling like I was just living too far away from home. It just felt like 1,800 miles in Colorado. I was too far from the West Coast. And within a couple months of my mother starting her 6-month chemotherapy regimen, job opening position announcement came up for Oregon State University. They were looking for a new assistant director for their student counseling center. And I decided to apply for that position. And it took several weeks, but I was invited to campus for an interview. Clark decided to come with me for that visit to Corvallis, because he'd taken one bus trip from Seattle to San Diego at some point in his 20s, but other than that, he'd never been in Oregon before. And he thought, well, if we're going to consider moving to Oregon, he said there better be something nice about Oregon, and I've got my standards, So he came out and he spent 2 or 3 days exploring Corvallis, exploring the Willamette Valley, exploring the Oregon coast, exploring the real estate market. He had already started taking classes in Colorado to pursue a real estate licensure. And anyway, the offer came through to me to become the new assistant director on campus here at Oregon State. And I knew this was going to be a great big question for Clark, yanking him away from the place he'd always dreamt of living and where he was very, very, very happy. And I remember Clark telling me after he joined me for the visit here when I was being interviewed, he actually did say, he goes, I actually was pretty impressed with what I'd seen. He'd never lived close to an ocean or close to a coast before. And, when I said, well, I've got this offer, and he said, well, I had these standards. He said, there has to be pine trees, there has to be mountains, there has to be good Thai restaurants, and honey, I don't want to do mental health work anymore. He'd been doing it for 12 years at that point. And I said, I'm okay with all of those. I said, you saw what you saw. And I said, what do you think? He says, well, if you're okay with me making a career change. And I said, I'm all for it if that's what you'd like to do. And it turned out the realtor that we worked with as we were looking for homes here, he told her that he had taken all the courses in Colorado, hadn't sat for the licensure exam yet, but he was hoping to get licensed here in Oregon. She told her boss, and he had a job offer before we ever actually moved here to go to work as a realtor in here in Corvallis. So that worked out. That worked out very well. I want to take just a minute to read something that was just sent to me yesterday from Oblio in the Eugene Gay Men's Chorus. He's in Thailand right now. He's on a business and pleasure trip to Thailand. And Oblio had posted something on Facebook a while ago that I was hoping to ask him to read today, but being in another part of the world, without me asking him to do this, he wrote something else that he just emailed me last night. And I really want to share this with the audience. Today is the day that people gather a world away from me to cry, to laugh, and to sing you home, Clark. Today, I'm sitting in an outdoor bathtub at dawn, watching the sun kiss the mountains of northern Thailand, awakening within me thoughts of the gift of your presence and the golden sunlight of your journey ahead. I'm doing now what you were doing then, living. Traveling requires such deep presence, showing up in each unpredictable moment, surfing the waves that come with intention and attention. I feel connected to you now, Clark, in this experience. You stood beside me at my first choral practice. Names were not even exchanged, and you looked at me and you told me that I had a beautiful voice. I didn't even know how much I needed to hear that day. I can't help but think that simple kindness has helped me be here even still to this day. There are others in the chorus who have known you much longer, who tell me you are a foundation of this chorus and more, how you drove one member to rehearsals at a pivotal part of their own healing process, supporting them in becoming who they need to be. These are not my stories to tell. I honor you by listening and participating in a good laugh or a cry, What I know of your life inspires me, and what I know of your death also inspires me. When it comes time that I meet you there, may I also be traveling in love and in presence, and as the breath leaves my body, may I be ushered home by all of my beloveds, so that I may easily close my eyes to see what comes next. Clark passed in the midst of doing what we loved doing and what we had dreamt of doing for years. We had the time of our lives on this big North America road trip that we took. I think we all think, hope, pray perhaps that when our time comes, it will be quick, it will be painless, there will be no suffering. I think Clark got that. And if there is such a thing as a good death, I also think Clark got that. Clark, we all love you. We're all thinking of you. We're all remembering you. We're all hoping you're in a good, better place. You will be in our hearts forever. Thank you. I am going to do one final thing. Those of you who made it to our wedding know that Clark and I sang to each other at our wedding. And before we open up the whole mic here for other people who would wish to come forward and share anything about Clark, I would like to sing one final song to Clark at the piano. I've gotten pretty good at talking through my tears. I don't know how well I do with singing through my tears, so please be kind. This is a song that actually came out in the 1940s, and the year before our parents got married. Our parents got married in 48. This came out in 47. Thank you. I think it speaks to some of the complexities and some of the contradictions of love, particularly in the context of a long-term, committed, intimate relationship. It's got its ups and downs, it's got its challenges, it's got its amazing joys at the same time. So let's see how this goes. This is for you, honey. This is for you. Love is funny, or it's sad, or it's quiet, or it's mad. It's a good thing, or it's bad, but beautiful. To take a chance, and if you fall, you fall. And I'm thinking I did not mind that at all. Love is tearful, or it's gay. It's a but beautiful, I know. Yes, I'm thinking, since you were mine, it's so hard to let you go. 'Cause what we had was beautiful. What we had was beautiful. Oh, what we had was so beautiful. I know. Love you, honey.
So if there are those who would like to share a memory or reflection, I invite you to come forward. Here you go. Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert, and I'm a good friends with Clark and Sam, and so is my family. We traveled down from Portland to be here at this celebration of life. My son, who's 17, and my daughter, who's 14, were talking about how they wanted to speak to you all today, but they got a little shy, and we'll see if they do come up in a few minutes, but I'll kind of start it off. Clark and Sam were honorary uncles to my family, and we've been with them ever since the kids were born, and we'd travel all over Oregon. We'd go camping, we'd go hiking, we'd go crabbing, and Clark was always going to stay behind and melt a pound of butter, so when we brought the crab in, he was all set to start cracking that crab, and we'd all enjoy it. Many times we did get a few crabs, so it was an enjoyable experience. But one experience comes to mind quite vividly. About 7 years ago, 2017, was a total eclipse coming over Oregon. Sam was laughing because he knows what's going to happen here. And so we were in the 2-minute totality, so you could actually look at the eclipse with your naked eye, and you're all set to just enjoy this amazing spectacle. And just a minute. Excuse me. And so we were camping at Netarts Bay, the Netarts RV Park, which is by the coast. We were going to get up early, we were going to watch the eclipse and just have a great time. And so we woke up probably around 6 o'clock, and it was overcast, completely cloudy. So Sam, Clark, and I, and the kids, we all started chatting, and we decided, you know what, let's go up into the mountains, and hopefully the clouds will break, and we'll be able to enjoy the eclipse. So we jump into that motor home, and we had a little bit of time to get there before it was going to happen, because it's a very limited time. And so Sam is driving, and it was one of the most, I don't know if you've heard of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, but we were flying around in this motorhome, and Clark's like, hold on, everybody, hold on. It was frightening, and it was worth it. We got there on time. We all got out. Breathtaking eclipse, and a really enjoyable time. So I just wanted to share that little memory that we had. And I would like to invite the kids up if they'd like to come up. Here he comes. Here comes Andrew. This is my son, Andrew.
Clark and I shared many likes. We liked adventuring, we liked going to the beach, and we traveled a lot to the beach with Sam and Clark to go crabbing, to go hiking, to go adventuring and enjoy the summer sun. Because as you can see outside, sun's an interesting commodity in Western Oregon. So it was a very windy summer day at Neatarts Bay. We had gone crabbing the previous day, and I was about to use up the last of the clean clothes that I packed, but we decided to take a nice walk on the beach with Sam and Clark and Sammy. We let Sammy off the leash to run around, and we chased after her, and it was fun, but it was also very windy, and Clark often wore a hat, many different kinds of hats, and one of his favorite hats was a sandy tan-colored one, which blew off his head, and we all scrambled around to try and find it, and ironically enough, me, the person walking around with a cane, tripped over the hat. That's how we found it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that little happy memory.
My name is Aaliyah Kobus. I'm 14, and I'm the sister of Andrew, who is just up here. One of the fondest memories I have was almost every year since the year I was adopted and brought to the U.S., we went to Ashland every summer to go to the Shakespeare Festival and see different performances for about a week and a half. We would stay there. And one of my favorite memories was when my mom, dad, and Sam went to see performances, just me, my brother, and Clark. Clark, he would, my favorite thing was he was always so nice. And when my brother and I were younger, he would always take us to the park in Ashland. And he always would spoil us by buying us candy and such without my parents knowing. And then after a couple hours, when my parents came back, Clark would just send us back to our parents saying good luck with us as we were high on sugar. And yeah, that was one of my favorite memories with Clark.
Hi, my name's Star. I'm going to keep my shades on. I'm sorry. I was Clark's barber for many, many years. I got to clean him up all the time, every month. And he just loved it. I would go to his work, and I would be the traveling barber for him. Well, you know, I've known Sam and Clark for over 23 years, and we've had some really crazy times. And this one time, there's two of them. Actually, there's more, but I'll just tell you about two. We would go and do our singing rehearsal and everything, and then we would do things afterwards. And this one night, we went to this restaurant, and or maybe we didn't rehearse that night. Maybe it was a Friday night, and we were just going to go out. And we went to this restaurant in Albany, and they had a band. And so I'm kind of crazy with music, and so I danced with Sam, and we had a great time and everything, and then it was Clark's turn. No way, Star, no way, no way. Well, you know what? He was standing up, and I've always wanted to do pole dancing. So I wanted to do the pole dancing with Clark. So he stood up there, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Just stand still. I'm going to be a dancer around the pole here." And I started dancing with him. You know, he didn't talk to me for a week. He was so mad at me. He told Sam, he says, I never want to talk to her again. But you know what? We got over that. Another time is Sam was saying about our retreats, you know, non-talent show. So when Clark, I would ride with them almost every Sunday and go do the singing at the rehearsal. Well, Sam had to come in earlier, so Clark and I would look at each other and go, well, what are we gonna do? Well, he loved to shop. I loved shopping with that guy. So we went to Goodwill. Well, he needed to get a pink skirt because we were going to do this skit called The Pink Sisters, and we all were going to wear pink. So he had to have a pink skirt. So we looked and looked and looked and looked. Guess what? We found a pink skirt. So then that's the only time I saw him wear that skirt is that no talent show. And that was really hilarious. And you know, there was just so many other, I remember we were going to do Wizard of Oz, and he was going to be the straw man, and Sam's going to be the lion. So, you know, he got his mask and everything, you know. We just had so much fun. We were skipping. You remember that? We were skipping down the road when we were going to go to this costume shop, and, you know, we're off to see the wizard, you know. I was going to be Dorothy, you know, and we just had so much fun together. And it's just really hard for me to know that he's not here, and I know he's going to be with us always. But when somebody told me about it, I told him, you're joking with me. Don't joke like that. And she said, no, he is gone. So I just want you to rest in peace, and I know you're in a wonderful place, Clark. And I just honor everybody being here. And Sam, I love you so much. Thank you.
My name is Linda Audrain. I met Clark on my very first day as a real estate agent. I walked in, the office was quiet. Real estate doesn't happen in the morning a lot. So we were just chatting and getting to know each other a little bit. He told me that he was going camping over the weekend. And I said, oh, do you have children? Well, we got that sorted out. And we just got to be very comfortable friends as real estate agents. We had so much fun together. Realtors go out and look at new listings, and in Corvallis that day, at that time, was on Wednesdays. Wednesday mornings, all the houses that were newly listed, a lot of them you could go see. And Clark and I would plan our route according to the places that had cookies. He was such a kind and thoughtful man. Not too long into my real estate career, I was diagnosed with a very serious cancer. And I had surgery, major surgery in Eugene. I was scared, I was sick, I was just a mess. And who do you think were the first two people to show up at the hospital to visit me and reassure me and comfort me? It was Clark and Sam. Clark was just one of the most special people, and we've all lost a dear, dear friend.
Hello, I'm Matthew. I belong to this wonderful group of people called Confluence, and my memory of Clark, some of the guys were doing a sectional at Clark and Sam's house, and this is gonna be hard. Just the presence he had that presence, and I became very good friends with him. And I know, as someone said to me in a previous service I was at, I know he's up there singing a good song. So, Clark, hopefully I see you again when I go my way. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Raymond. I'm the artistic director of Confluence Founding. Clark was a founding member, and he was our first president of the board. He wrote our bylaws. And when you are part of a gala organization, there's the conferences that you go to, and usually the artistic director and the president of the board travels to these events. Well, this year when we first started, it was in Florida. So Clark and I went to Florida, and we had a great time, ate a lot of food, and we decided to go to Disney World while we're there. And, long lines, you know how that is, like that. And he said, well, I don't do roller coasters. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. And we would get in these long lines, and then we get closer. He turns to me and says, is this a roller coaster? And I said, maybe. So I made sure he got into the front car of this roller coaster and sat in front of me so I can watch his reactions.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey. I moved here in 2007 and from Arizona at the age of 27. And I joined Confluence because I wanted to be a part of a community. And Ray tested me out and said, go sit over next to those gentlemen. And I was like, okay. Well, those two gentlemen happen to be Sammy and Clark. And Clark says, hi, and looks away. Sammy comes up and he's like, hello, and I'm Sam Sappington. And the way Sam said it, I felt like I should know who he was. Is he the governor? Did he own Confluence? I was so confused. I'm 27, remember, I'm kind of out of it. And what I didn't realize in that moment, and every day since, is it's the first day I found family. Sam and Clark introduced me to my husband, who I'm still with. For better or for worse. Love you, baby. Mwah. Clark found our first house that we are still in. And whenever I think about music, good friends, good food and wine, good laughs, pinochle. Clark House, there's nothing I can say about him that you don't already know. But Clark House, which, by the way, greatest name for a real estate agent ever. You cannot buy that publicity. And, but he was a house. He was bigger than this church, and the love that he gave each and every one of us and across the United States. It was such a joy to have him in my life. And Sammy, I love you so much. And thank you for everything. And Clark, man, thank you for everything.
Hi, everyone. My name's Shaylin, and Clark was family. Technically, Sam is my dad's cousin, but they were really always like friends, and somehow uncles, somehow cousins, but always family and dear friends. There's so much I could say about Clark. But when I think of his soul, he was a dame. Clark was a dame, and I think of him as like a woman in a red dress singing at a jazz concert. He always just had this smirk and this glint in his eye, and as we all know, was just the kindest, most thoughtful, sweetest man. He also, I forget if I was 29 or 30, but they asked me to officiate their wedding, and I just couldn't believe to have the honor to do that when I was 40 years they're younger, and it was just one of the greatest honors of my life and one of the best weddings of my life. Clark also, what I want to end on here, got us our first house, and we're going to be so grateful for that for the rest of our lives. And now we've got a toddler in the back and a baby on the way, and Clark created the home that we will raise those kids in. And looking, my husband and I, like many first-time home buyers, had no idea what we were doing, and it was so cool to share that experience with Clark, someone we love so deeply. And we would go to these ramshackle houses that were within our price range, and Clark wouldn't say a thing, and this house is falling apart, and he would just, let us see the house, and we'd come out and be like, well, what do you think? And would never make any comments, be like, well, the house is falling apart. He's like, yeah, okay, let's go see the next one. And the house that we're in now, it was tricky, the peak of the housing purchase, so it was really tricky to get that house. And Clark came through, and one of the ways he made our deal special, he wanted to write something in that to know let the seller know that we really cared. So he wrote in the one thing the house had to come with was the purple mood lighting behind the couch. This was written in the purchase contract. So we still have this one purple mood lighting behind our couch, and we will always think of Clark with that purple mood lighting. It's very fitting. So we love you so much, Sam.
Excuse me. I had the privilege of meeting Clark and Sam with the EGMC that I sing with. I'm not singing with them today. I'm still getting over something, so. But I don't have any negative memories of Clark or Sam by extension. And when I first learned of his passing, even though I didn't know them that well, except for through the chorus, it hit me in a way that I wasn't prepared for. And I had just made food, but I started crying and I lost my appetite because it was just so sudden. And I think it's because of the warmth that you all know Clark to have and Sam together that it was really shocking. And, there's not a lot that I can say. I didn't know them very intimately, except for through the chorus and through people telling about their lives, which always sounds so great, their adventures and things. But singing with him and giving hugs, it's just always nice and it always felt so warm and welcoming. So I just want to share that with you, and thank you, Sam. I'm sorry again, but I'm glad to be here. So.
Come on up. I think I'm seeing hand signals that maybe you will be our final speaker, not to cut anybody off.
Ooh, this is high for me. I'm vertically challenged. I actually know Clark mostly from Sam. I know them as a couple, an incredibly loving, wonderful couple. Sam I know from high school, so 50 years, actually more than that. But yeah, just wonderful, loving, caring people. And what I found was that they gave so much. I mean, look around you at what we see here. The friends, the family, the husband, partner. So much of what Clark gave to us, all of us, and what they as a couple gave to us. And I wrote a poem. I'm a poet. And I think this exemplifies what you have given us through your example. So I'd like to read it to you. It's called Around Every Corner. Around every corner is revealed a unique view, a wondrous experience, a chance for something new. Relish all the journey. Give the travel time its due. For the beauty seen along the road, in truth, it's up to you. From time to time, you'll follow an old familiar way, reflecting in the memories of journeys from yesterday. The comfort of a well-worn path has a precious role to play, allowing you to appreciate the simple pleasures found every day. When you encounter crossroads and turn on paths you don't intend, expanding your horizons is a juncture to befriend. Some roads are smooth, straight, others a challenge to transcend. So create a spectrum of adventure, insight at your journey's end. Around every corner is revealed a unique view, either reflections on a retraced path or adventures to pursue. To gain the richness of your travels, there's no one avenue. For the beauty seen along the road, in truth, it's up to you. And Sam, you and Clark gave us one heck of a view. Thank you for your fine, wonderful example of how to see the beauty in life. Clark, thank you.
I have one short thing I want to read. The day after Clark passed, I had to go to the local funeral home to make final arrangements and so forth. And the people in New Mexico, the officials that were involved with this whole case, were so helpful in trying to expedite things in as many ways as they could, and during Christmas weekend and so forth. So At one point in the meeting with the funeral home director, she had to get up and leave the conference room to go make some Xerox copies of some things. And the room we were sitting in, along one wall, was a whole display of sample caskets for standard burials. And right behind me, where I was sitting at the conference table, there was a wall of urns that were available for holding someone's ashes. And Paul and Roxanne and I just kind of all got up and just kind of looked to see what was there. There were some beautiful things. And one of the urns in particular had an etching on it that just spoke right to me. And I just want to read it very, very, very briefly. And I haven't been able to read this without crying. So when I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rites in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go.
Remember that we will have time for sharing additional stories, reflections. I'm going to invite the Eugene Gay Men's Chorus to share with us.
It's nice to stand. I'm Lorene. My spouse Nancy and I have known Sam and Clark for 23 plus years. And across these years, we've gotten to know each other beyond the superficial level. When Sam asked if I wanted to do a reading today, I was willing, but I wanted to find one which speaks to the core of who I perceive Clark to be in his inner being. And you'll notice I go present tense, past tense, but somehow I think Clark is still, the Spirit is here amongst us. So this is my perception. We've heard lots of other people come up. Each of you will have your own unique experience of relationship with Clark, which shapes your perception of who he is at heart. Put all of our little perceptions together and we might just come to a more full reality of who is Clark. Throughout his life, he operated from a belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person he encountered and held a desire to acknowledge and support that reality. We've heard of that here today. That might well have been a primary influence leading him into the field of psychology, which he practiced for many years. But even after leaving that practice to become a realtor, the worth and dignity value remained strong and directed his approach to his new occupation. I remember him telling me once that he was able to use the knowledge and skills he learned through psychology to help reduce the anxiety and fears of many potential homeowners. Being a good realtor to Clark was much more than just making the sale. It was making the right sale and reassuring his clients in their choice. Clark was always, as we've heard, a gentle and kind person, compassionate and empathetic, non-judgmental, maybe occasionally with Sam, but that was okay. He was a reliable and supportive friend, not just there for the good times, but willingly stepping forward to help when help was needed. Recently, he assisted a friend of ours who could no longer adequately and safely provide for her own needs, but had no family nearby to assist in assuring that her needs were met. For well over a year, Clark made sure her medical needs were being met, her housing and daily care needs were taken care of, until finally she was able to move into an environment where these functions would be provided. Then he backed out of the caregiver role, but he remained a steady, loving friend. He accentuated the positive over the negative. He wasn't just good works and words. As we've heard, Clark had a good sense of humor, and he did like to have fun. Thank you, Sam. I've got that darn picture of the water in my mind. I hope you all have a chance to see that. However, in all that he did, he never stood out as the focus of attention. Rather, he was very understated in his actions. He knew we have to care for one another, but quietly and without fanfare or drawing the spotlight to one's deeds. He wasn't a lone crusader, but he drew on the support and love of Sam to keep him moving forward. I'm glad that you and Clark had the chance to go out and achieve so many of your dreams, especially that last tour around the U.S. But I'm sure if Clark were sitting here with us today, he would be looking forward to yet more things he would want to achieve, and not just for his own benefit.
So the reading I'm sharing is written by a mother to her son in kind of an art poetry book entitled The Grace of Ordinary Days, an invitation to celebrate life's journey. And I like it because I can imagine, just truly strongly envision Clark standing here saying to all of us here today and the days that follow what I'm about to read. So it's entitled Moving On. Dear loved ones, every story you tell about me is true. But every story you tell about me is incomplete. There was always more I wanted to say and do with my life. You finished the story by adding to it with yours. Will you? Will you? Will you? Here, beyond time, all the differences that kept us from getting our loving just right don't matter a tinker's dam. Here, everything is love, pure, simple, and complete. This love is my only wish for you. As ever, gratefully and lovingly yours, Clark. Thank you.
We now have the opportunity to have our combined choirs help us to bring some sense of closure to this celebration. Yeah, so Sam is saying that any of you who have previously sung with the choir and want to come join them, please do. great word of thanks to the choirs for what you've shared with us so beautifully. You've helped us to understand that none of us necessarily really know where we're going. There's a sense that heaven knows. There's a sense that in this very room, we have had the opportunity to share in this moment, in celebrating the power of the Spirit of love that we have experienced in Clark's life, and that the choirs, in a sense, have invited us to take that gift out into the world. So with that, in thanksgiving for our time here together and for what we hope for in our future, please go and go in peace. Amen.